Each season, summer, fall, and winter, spring, the Loft schedules a huge variety of writing classes. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce a teaching artist who specializes in screenwriting, Jeff Pfeiffer. Jeff, could you introduce yourself and tell us how you got involved at the Loft?
Sure. Hi. My name is Jeff. I got involved in the Loft basically a few years ago. I started teaching. My wife and I were living in Los Angeles, and we decided that we wanted to move out to the Midwest to be closer to her family. And teaching had been something I had really been serious about doing for a very, very long time. And so I'd been teaching here. I actually live in Madison, Wisconsin. So I started teaching here in Madison locally, and I reached out to the Loft, knowing that the Loft is one of the great centers here in Minneapolis. And so I reached out to the Loft to hopefully do some work and yeah.
Could you explain briefly what all screenwriting encompasses?
What all screenwriting encompasses? So screenwriting encompasses all the aspects of anything you would see visually on screen, obviously, but it's television, it's movies, it's streaming right now. Streaming is extremely big, and the genre is sort of expanding. You have shows that look like movies and movies that resemble shows. But it's also screenwriting now is short films on YouTube. It could be, well, I guess it's not Quibi because that thing failed, but it could be anything. It's anything that's presented on a screen in a dramatic fashion. So it wouldn't be nonfiction per se, wouldn't be reality. But although there are definitely some elements of writing in that as well, but it's mostly a lot of movies, TV, and theater.
And what would you say are craft elements specifically that overlap for people who might think of more traditional prose writing with screenwriting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So screenwriting is really the blueprint, I think, of it's interesting because when you write a novel, you're basically sitting down and you're writing, or fiction, or any piece of fictional writing. You're sitting down, you're writing something that's to be shared with the person who's reading it. Screenwriting is very much a collaborative art, and so the writer really is primary, but the writer is also writing something that has to be used by production designers, actors, directors, lighting people, etc. So you're basically writing a blueprint for a larger work. Now, as a writer, where you come into that is you don't have the camera, you don't have the actors, you don't have any of that stuff, but you have your voice and you have your skill as a writer, and you can use that in your screenplay to to get your ideas across and your feelings across. One of the greatest ways to do that is through dialogue, but also through description. And I think those are two elements that really, if you are a writer who has written fiction before, should have no problem jumping into.
And what drew you to screenwriting originally?
Gosh, what drew me to screenwriting originally? I think I was always a big movie fan and TV fan as a kid growing up, and a big writing fan. And I did some acting a little bit, but I was kind of an introverted person. And I think what I really enjoyed the most was sitting down and creating my own world. And whenever I get stressed out or unhappy or don't know what I'm doing with writing or anything, I just kind of sit back and say, let me sit back and I want to sit and create a world again and just live in that world. So I so I think that kind of answers that. I think a lot of people really are attracted to movies, and it's just one of the most fun things you can possibly do is write a film or TV show.
And movies and TV shows are like the most obvious inspiration for screenwriting, but are there other elements of your life or art that you consume that you really draw into your own writing?
Yeah, I I'm really yeah. So I used to be very inspired by movies and shows, and I still am. But I find myself being much more inspired now by, well, I'm very inspired by fiction. I love to read, but I'm also really inspired by people that I meet and talk with. And I think I used to walk around being much more sort of closed off to people and experiences, and now I find everything I see and talk to, or everything I see and people I talk to now all sort of become. I look at them as being food for my engine, and I'm very much inspired. And I think also living in the Midwest now has been so great because I've just met all kinds of people that have not been connected to the film and TV business, and it's really opened me up so much more to it's opened me up and inspired me a lot more than I ever thought I could have been.
And your class is an introduction to screenwriting. And
Right.
so you will probably be having a lot of people who come in who haven't written for screen before, maybe haven't even really read scripts before. What would you say that people will like really firmly understand after taking your class?
Yeah. So my class is called Tools of the Screenwriter, and I think that what everybody comes with different, like you said, everybody comes with different abilities, different skill sets. Some people have read, and some people haven't, or read scripts before, and some people haven't. But what I'm giving is the tricks or the tools that anybody could use. And you may find yourself on a longer journey or a shorter journey, but you will now have a set of principles and guidelines that you can use that would help you in anything you're writing, not just in screenwriting, but any kind of writing, but specifically in screenwriting. Um, and it will get you on that path. But I do feel that anybody can learn these things. I don't think it's outside of anyone's purview.
I know that writing in a new genre can be really intimidating. So for people who are watching this who might be saying like, oh, I'm really interested, but I don't know if I want to get into a new classroom setting, could you describe just your ideal classroom environment and how you put people at ease?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to think I take a really relaxed approach. I really like to keep it loose. I have a lot of fun. I like to have fun. I don't think that you retain as much information when you are stressed out and unhappy. I just like to keep it very loose. Uh, Having said that, I also think that we're all people, we're all grown-ups. I don't like to have a hierarchy. I think that you should feel free to open yourself up, and shouldn't, and because ultimately writing is a very difficult act, and you shouldn't feel like there's enough roadblocks and all kinds of things. You should be able to come into the class and feel free to open yourself, and so so I don't like to have it be very hierarchical. I like to keep it very fun and loose.
When you think of the experiences that students are going to have in this class, what are your goals for them to take away? What would have to happen for you to consider the class a success?
I think that the goals there should be that you should be able to put some words on the page. I think that's a goal for just about anybody. But I think that you'll start out feeling like you don't know how to put one foot in front of the other. And I think when you leave, you should be able to have about a solid outline and about 30-40 pages of script. And when you've got that, you've got a really good starting point, and you are able to work from there. I think that once you have about 30-40 pages down, it doesn't even matter. As long as you've got those words on the page, you should be able to edit, revise, but sometimes it's just so hard just to start, and I think getting started is really just 9/10 of it.
And for those of us unfamiliar with screenwriting, 30 or 40 pages of a script, what would that translate to, like, minutes wise of a show or a film?
Yeah, so and that's a lot of pages, and it's a lot of time. It's 30-40 pages is about 30-40 minutes of screen time, roughly. It's not actually you don't have to like scientifically sort of like parse, so it's not, I don't want to get metaphysical or anything, but it's roughly about 30-40 pages of screen time. And so that can be quite a bit of writing to do. I think if you sit down and write 30 pages of memoir, I don't know, maybe that's not as hard, but I think just trying to get 30-40 pages of something really solid, it can feel hard, but we can definitely get there.
And then for our final question, I'm going to telescope out a little bit just about the craft of screenwriting. Using your expert's eye, when you read a script, or even when you're just watching TV or watching a movie, what strikes you as being just really, really good screenwriting? How does that translate onto a screen?
Wow. Well, if you get really wrapped up in something, I think that is the key, right? If you just get so wrapped up in something and completely forget about everything else happening, and the story feels super real, and you don't think, I can see the mechanics here, and I can see the gears turning, and I can see the levers, and great dialogue, great characters. One of the things that I look for is a super realistic feeling character with a super completely realistic want, and challenges that come up for that character. And that's easier said than done. But again, it has to feel like it shouldn't feel like, oh, I can see where the seams are. I can see where I can see the wires in the background. So yeah, those are things that I look for, I think.
Well, for our viewers, you can find Jeff's classes as well as our full winter spring lineup by visiting theloft.org/classes. Jeff, thank you so much for being here today and explaining your class. I'm very excited to see it.
Thank you.